Hi, welcome back to CS170 spring session. Um, as you know, I've been taking requests for different things to review in preparation for the final exam. So I did get some requests around things like arrays and loops. So I'm going to just cut a quick video here talking about some loops and just some different variations of that, which you can use for examples, or if you want to come back to me with further questions, I can build off of that. So at least this is a starting point. And before I go into that, I did also make an announcement. Some of you might start to see some of the extra credit points starting to come through. I haven't gone through all of them yet, but some of you have asked about, so I just want to clarify a couple points. Number one, the instructor extra credit is only 10 points, right? So excuse me. So you're going to get the 10 points, but remember the first week assignment, which is basically like a lot of transition, people are moving in and out of class, so we don't really make it a heavy class or a heavy week. That first assignment is 2 points for extra credit. So the total points will be 10, but in reality, what I'm going to give you based on you responding to my queries during the lectures is 8 maximum. Okay. The other thing you'll notice is that the average score that's calculated is not accurate. And that's just a flaw in how the Canvas system takes in the extra credit, actually treats it as part of your regular score as opposed to above and beyond your normal score or your points. So that's something that gets rectified when they actually set up the final calculation after your final exam is done. So don't worry so much about it if you're not expecting the final average score as what you would be expecting if you took in the extra credit. That's going to get fixed as part of the final calculation. Okay. Anyway, if there's any other questions, just let me know. And you probably saw the announcements earlier this week about the exam 2 questions and answers and the quizzes that opened up. So do take advantage of that. Those things don't stay open indefinitely. They do get closed back up again. So if there's any questions on that, make sure you drop into lab hours or office hours. For my own office hours tomorrow, Friday, just let me have some advance notice so I can line you up so I don't have everybody showing up at the same time. That would be good. Okay. Anyway, so let's hit the loops. And so what I've done here is I've gone into JSDO and done a few examples here. Okay. So this first example, you can see what I did, and you can see the translation here to demo loop one. This is the standard first loop that you did, right? So you have 3 parts, as you remember. The first part is to initialize a variable. So in this case, we're setting I equals to 1. And then you're going to take that variable and match it against some criteria to say, when is this loop done? So in this case, I'm saying when the variable starting from 1 is less than or equal to 10. Once it goes above 10, then you get out of this loop. And this loop, this variable is going to go up by 1 every time you go through. That's why I have I equals to I plus 1. And then so within the loop, every time you're just going to write out that number, right? That's what it's doing over here. And you're going to have a comma if it's less than 10, okay? Because 10 being the last number, you don't want a comma after that. So that's why you just say if I is less than 10, you put a comma there. So that's why you get 1 comma, 2 comma, so on and so forth, okay? So that's loop 1. And then what I did here is I created loop 2, and I just kind of flipped it around. So now I started I equals to 10, and then I took it down to minus 10, okay? And then just to kind of change things up a little bit also, instead of I equals to I minus 1, I did I minus minus, okay? Which, you know, is basically the flip of the I plus plus, okay? Same thing here, I did the right of the I, and then now I said if it's greater than or equal to -9, then put a comma, right? So it's the same concept of the first loop, but I just flipped everything around. And just to add another dimension to it, I took it down to a negative. So I said I is greater than or equal to -10. Okay, so of course you see what happened here, demo loop 2, and you can see it started from 10 and worked its way down all the way to -10. Okay, so that's just basically loop 1, but flip it around, going from high to low. Okay, now what I did here, I decided, well, instead of doing I equals to I minus 1, I said I equals to I minus 2. And all that does is it goes through the loops just like before. I shortened the loop anyway. So I said from I equals to 10 to I greater than equal to 0. And then now you can see it's just going down to even numbers, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. Okay, so that's loop 3. And then the last one, what I decided to do was basically created a nested loop. Okay, so you have the for loop. This is what they call the outer loop. And then the inner loop is another for loop. And I just said for, and then I created J. So I don't make sure you don't do an I again, right? So I did an I up here. I mean, technically, I did all these I's up here. I kind of really shouldn't have done it that way, but it works. So I just left it. So ideally, you kind of change these variables for each of the loops. But in any case, for sure, when you do this loop and this loop, you better create like a different variable. So this one is I, and then the inner one is J, right? And then just to not make it a big confusing, I just said J is less than or equal to 2. And then, so every time you loop through here, you do another for loop within here, okay? And then just to kind of add like a little bit of extra stuff to this, I did concatenation here, right? So I just did the space, I did the variable J, and then I did another string, and I concatenate all 3 of these things together, okay? And then I did a comma here. And so here's the demo for loop. And you can see it's counting down again, right? So it's 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 0. But then with each time that it's in there, I have my inner for loop where I put in like 1 ABC, 2 ABC, right? Which is this. I put an ABC here so it stands out a bit, right? So that's a demonstration of the inner loop, or a nested loop. I can keep on nesting more loops in here. So I won't really go into exactly why you would do some nesting, but you can imagine, for things like, working with a cube, let's say. So you're working on a 3-dimensional space. As you kind of try to hit all of the different blocks within that cube, or different spaces within the cube, you can imagine you would do some nested for loops as one way to work with each of the blocks within that cube. So just as an example, so these are some different variations of loops that you can take a look at, digest it, tell me if there's any questions on it. If you'd like me to cover some other aspects of loops, just send me an email and I'll see if I cut another video. All right, thank you, and that'll be it.